I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her Podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Hey guys, and welcome back to Hustle Her Podcast. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. As always, we want to say a big shout out to our sponsors, Brown & Company, as well as 59 Front. Brown & Company have provided some of the decor that you see here on set today, and we're so grateful for them, and we thank them for their continuous support for the podcast. Make sure you head over to hustleherpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and sign up to be a VIP listener. We have some cool giveaways coming up, and we can't wait for you to get them. So, super excited about today, and I know I say that all the time, but I actually genuinely mean it every time. My next guest is not only a friend of mine, she's also the marketing and communications director for One Communications, Shira Jatto.
Hello. Shira. So nice to be here.
I'm so happy. You know, I almost said your maiden name again, even after writing it down.
I know. I waited a long time to get a new name because it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And so, Jatto.
There you go. I love it. A fun fact, I did Shira's day of coordination for her wedding.
She did. It was such a wonderful day.
It was such a wonderful day. Such a good time. Lara did the videography too, right?
Did.
Look
so
at this.
It's a wedding reunion.
Just a little
8 years
reunion
later.
going on.
8 years later.
8 years.
Yep.
Wow. Eight years, 2 kids. Crazy.
Been a ride.
It's been a ride. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to ask you some quick questions, get everyone to know you a little better, and then we'll go from there.
All
cool?
right.
All right. What food can you not live without?
Oh, this is a hard one. What food can I not live without? I love gummies.
Okay.
I say candy. I love gummies.
Okay.
I try not to eat them, but I love a good gummy, a sour gummy.
Okay. Oh yeah, sour is always a good. Love a good sour gummy. Okay. Give me something that's currently making you very happy.
What's my kids?
Yeah.
Definitely my kids. Always a joy. End of the day, seeing my kids smiling. That definitely makes me happy. And then quiet time. Complete opposite. But my kids, and then just being able at the end of the day, maybe just to have a few minutes to myself. Maybe watch some Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite show currently?
Okay, I'm not going to say it's my favorite.
Okay.
But I am watching The Ultimatum.
Okay, I know a new season just came out.
I think it just started
like yesterday, yeah.
Yes. So I'm only, 1 or 2 episodes in. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it is a little dramatic. What does he always say on The Bachelor? The most dramatic season.
Yeah, This is
like that.
Oh my gosh.
So watch it. I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but I am a reality TV junkie.
Same.
I hate saying it, but I am.
It's my guilty pleasure in life. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too. I love a little Love Island, but The Ultimatum, watch it.
Okay, cool. All right. What's the title of the last book that you read?
Oh, who has time to read books?
I agree.
I get through like 5 minutes of an episode, and then the next day I have to go back and figure out where I was.
So last favorite book then.
It's been a while.
Okay.
Really, I hate saying that, but
it's reality.
I read a lot of blogs. I read a lot of social media and marketing blogs versus books because, as we know, the trends and Instagram and algorithms, and so that's my thing. I read a lot of blogs.
Okay, cool.
So read a lot of blogs, watch a lot of blogs. Blogs are videos now.
Exactly. All right, favorite color?
Pink. Yes, I love a little pink, a little fuchsia, magenta, whatever this is, purpley.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, and then finally, we ask. It's like become a thing now.
Okay,
who is your celebrity crush?
Oh. So I don't think I have one now.
Okay,
but going back, Richard Gere, Pretty Woman.
Richard Gere. Okay, I can see it. I can see it.
But like now that I know a little bit more about what that movie was about, maybe that's a bit weird.
What's crazy is we watched it and it was like we thought it was an amazing love story. But
Patrick Swayze, Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, same thing.
And then I had a weird one for Bruce Willis. I don't know. People make fun of me when I say that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Bruce Willis. And then Michael Ealy, but Barbershop Days.
Okay, I agree. Because Michael Ealy in Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious was not good looking. I don't know what happened with him there.
What's the movie where he's really creepy? And he did a really good job in that movie.
For Colored Girls. Was it For Colored Girls?
But I don't remember what it was called, but it was really creepy and he lost me after that. So we're going to go with Barbershop Days.
All right, there we go. Barbershop Days. All right. So tell me about little Shira. Like, what did little Shira want to be when she grew up?
Okay. So this might surprise a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I was actually talking to my mom about this the other day, but little Shira was terrible.
No way.
Little Shira did not behave. She did not listen. She was in her room a lot. Yeah, my mom told me I was the hardest of the three. I was rebellious. I was the kid who snuck out. I did whatever I wanted. I was not a good kid. And so my mom always said to me, I hope one of your kids turns out to be like you, just so you can see what it was like. So just, putting it out there, please don't be like me. I was a bad kid. And I wanted to be a teacher, I think, when I was younger. And then as I got older, I actually had no idea what I wanted to be.
Sure, I would have never thought that.
Exactly. So anybody who knows me now, except for my mom and maybe my dad and my uncles, aunts, funny story. My dad at one point, I wasn't listening. And he took a stuffed animal and he held it over the trash. And he said, if you don't clean or whatever I was supposed to do, I'm going to throw it out. And I looked at him and I said, fine, throw it out. And I didn't care.
Oh, no.
So I was terrible. But then, I don't know, I always had a good head on my shoulders coming up. Even if I hung out with the wrong people, I did the wrong things. So I went to university and I got a job working at a Rogers video store. This is in Toronto.
Yeah.
Which is like a Blockbuster for those who don't know, but they also sold internet and TV and cell phones and all that. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to eat popcorn and rent out movies to people and have a great time. And I just kind of found my love for sales and people and customer service. And I was doing communications and humanities in university and just kind of fell into marketing.
Wow.
So I decided to take marketing and then I was in school for 7 years.
That's crazy.
But and then being in the Rogers environment with internet and cell phone and TV and all that, I kind of fell in love with the fast-paced telecommunications world.
Got you.
And so I ended up just loving marketing and communication. So it's not something I ever, as a kid said, this is what I want to do. But yeah.
And so how did you end up in Bermuda?
So a recruiter called me at one point for a marketing job. It was actually with North Rock Communications.
Wow, what a lifetime ago.
Shout out to North Rock Communications.
Crazy.
And so, a recruiter called me and I had about 2 weeks to make a decision and I moved here and it was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, because if my memory serves me correctly, you met your now husband shortly after you got here.
6 weeks later.
Can you imagine?
At Lemon Tree of all places. Shout out to Lemon Tree. We all miss you. But 6 weeks later we met and 12 years later we're married, 2 kids.
That is crazy. Yeah. We're in Bermuda for 6 weeks and you met your husband.
I did.
That is so great. Where were you guys?
So we were at Lemon Tree. We had a mutual coworker. So he actually used to work at North Rock Communications.
Really?
So one of the guys that was still there they were on a boys' night. I was on a girls' night. Saw him there.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. I made the first move, actually.
Really? I love that.
I did. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Why can't we?
I know. It's so crazy. A lot of times people think like, oh, you got to wait for the guy to say something or come and give you the number. And look, it worked in your favor, right?
Did, 12 years later.
There you go. Still married. 2 beautiful girls.
Yes,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So you in Bermuda working at North Rock. How did you end up as the director of marketing of one of the largest telecommunications companies on island?
So was at North Rock doing a little bit of marketing and sales, having a great time, loved it. The best thing was meeting all the people, right? You're doing sales, you're going out to at that time we picked up the phone book and we called,
cold
right?
calling. Remember that?
And you go and meet people and you meet amazing people. So I think me and my husband actually went to a party, one of our first dates, and I said, I'm not going to know anyone here. And I walked in, hey, knew more people than
Bermuda.
But so from there, ended up at Logic, did a little bit of work at Digicel, ended up in the corporate world at Appleby and Astera, which is now Corian, and just kind of moved my way through, got my experience, did a little business development, marketing, sales along the way, and thankfully now at One Communications. Shout out One.
Nice. So when you think of your journey as a woman in this industry, do you think it's difficult for women to get promoted in this industry with telecommunications in particular, or is it something that kind of progressed naturally for you?
I think for me, it progressed naturally. And one of the things that I admire so much about Bermuda is we have so many powerful women in such powerful positions. And I admire that so much. I don't know if there's many other places like Bermuda in that way, but when you go to places like We Speak, and you just go to conferences in general in Bermuda, and not necessarily in, you know, telecommunications, but in general, we just have so many incredible women. And so I think it kind of happened for me naturally, you know, being creative and just kind of moving my way through. And I've learned a lot from so many people. And I've had some amazing managers who were women. And so I think they kind of helped me just navigate through. But I do think it happened naturally. And I think we have, like I said, some amazing, powerful women in Bermuda who are in some amazing top positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you were at North Rock, they had a female CEO at the time as well,
so Vicky
right?
was there.
Yeah.
You know, at Appleby, I think it's, you know, almost half the partners there were women. You know, I worked for a woman at O'Corian, managing director, managing partner. So I worked for some amazing women.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right about Bermuda. I mean, we still have a long ways to go when it comes to some things, but when it comes to female leadership, even in the political arena, like we had some female leaders before it was like a thing, you know what I mean? Especially like in the US and Canada and places like that. So
I agree.
That's actually a very good point. I didn't even think of it that way. But as a leader, as a woman who leads a team, like I said, a large company, have there any been like barriers for you in your career when it comes to being a woman in leadership?
It's funny. I go back to my days in Toronto. Toronto, I should say. I'm so Bermudian now. Toronto. I can't believe I just did that. My family's going to be mad. Sorry to all the... I go back to my days when I was working at TELUS. So TELUS is similar, again, to a One Mobile. And I was working in the call center. And I was studying marketing in school. And I told myself, I am going to get a marketing position at TELUS. I love TELUS. For those who don't know, they have these fun, furry animals, and they use them for marketing. And it's always, what's the next one? It's a lot of fun. And I always said, I am going to be in marketing. And I was in the call center, and there was a job that came up, and I went for it, and I did my best. You know, I'd gone through school. I'd done everything I could. I was studying. I was putting myself out there. I was working. At one point, I was in school 2 days a week full time and working 5 days a week. So I was hustling. I was working hard.
Yeah.
And I remember I got the job, and this guy came up to me and he said, you got the job because you're this, you know, pretty girl or whatever it was at the time.
Wow.
And I thought that was so strange, right? Because we look and we always say, it's a man's world, right?
Yeah.
And he just said it to me like that. And I always think back to that. But now I don't feel that way. I think, you know, you're a man, you're a woman, you know, if you're right for the job,
you're right for the
give
job.
them the job.
Exactly.
Right. And it's funny, I saw a post recently from one of my friends, and she traveled and she talked about multitasking and why you should hire women. And, you know, we do multitask well. Yeah. But no, I don't think there were any barriers in that sense. I think, you know, you're good at the job, you work hard.
Yeah. And I know you said a little while ago, like you never thought that you would be in marketing and communications, but was there something else that you kind of in your career, and you look back 20 years ago, you know, or whenever it was, you're like, you know what, I should have taken that path? Or you wonder, what that would have been like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think maybe not so much career-wise, but maybe if I look back and I think, this is a weird one, but religion-wise, I'm actually Jewish. There's not a lot of Jewish people in Bermuda, but we're around. Yeah. And I actually ended up having a falling out with my dad because of religion. And I always think like, well, what if I had gone the other path, and what if I had stayed on this, you know, religious Jewish path? What would that look like? And not that I ever want to change that. And I love my life, and I think I 100% made the right decision. But you always think like, what would that look like if I made a different decision?
Yeah. Well, you definitely probably wouldn't have been in Bermuda. That wouldn't have been the case at all.
It would have been terrible.
Yeah.
But I look back and I just think, what would life have been like if I had decided to stay on that religious path?
So in marketing, you mentioned a little while ago about, you know, staying on top of the brands and the trends and everything like that. How do you stay on top of that in doing your job and maintaining and all of that? Because like you said, everything changes all of the time. Instagram, I mean, give us a break. But you know, it's always something changing. How do you stay on top of everything?
It's hard, but literally by scrolling Instagram, by scrolling TikTok, reading the blogs, you have to stay on top of it. You know, what's the latest algorithm? Let me Google that. And there's so many different blogs. Thankfully, there's a lot of people who do that research. And they post
just gotta listen.
And then just looking for the different trends. So, you know, we came across the Simma trend on TikTok and we did it at work and we had so much fun. And actually yesterday, Beanie Man actually went and liked our video, which I thought was so cool, right? Cool. So I sent it around to everybody and it looked, you know, now you're famous, you know.
Beanie Man saw it.
Yeah. But I just, you know, that for me is how to do. You just look at TikTok, look at Instagram. We don't have a TikTok, but a lot of those trends carry forward into Instagram and Facebook. And funny enough, that video is doing, you know, 1 million times better on Facebook than it is on Instagram.
It's so crazy. Yeah, with Bermuda and Facebook, it does. The trends are weird with marketing with Bermuda.
It's different age groups with Instagram and Facebook.
Very much so. Yeah,
you know, they're both great tools. But yeah, just reading again the blogs, watching the videos, staying up to date on TikTok and Instagram, very important.
Yeah, how has been? Because you're a boss, right? You know, you've got people that were boss, you know, own it, right? You got a boss, people that report into you, you know, managing a big budget, a huge brand on island. How does that affect family life?
It's busy. I would say the hardest thing for me is cooking.
Really?
Cooking, yeah. So when I went from 1 to 2 kids, that changed a lot. So I had my second when my first was already 5. So I was able to come home and put food on the table and do my cooking while she was playing or reading or whatever she had to do. Now with the second, I find I struggle. Unless I sit there on a Sunday, which a lot of us do with the batch cooking, I struggle. So, you know, I need to find someone to do that for me.
I'm telling you, there's people that will come in and do it. It has to be.
I know.
It has to
be.
But,
you know, I don't like going grocery shopping. Pronto has saved my life.
Saved my life. Shout out to Pronto.
Shout out to Pronto. Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, it's the grocery shopping, it's the cooking. Everything else I feel like I'm doing well. You know, you pack the bags the night before and all that, but then it's going into work, shutting off everything else, focusing on what needs to get done that day, building my team, and just making sure I'm successful at work, and then going home and making sure I'm successful at home, because you have a relationship with your partner. You have kids at home and you need to make sure they're growing the way you want them to grow up, and instilling the values and teaching them. And, you know, then you worry, is my kid reading? There's a lot, constant worry. So it's going to work and shutting off and being the leader and just making sure that my team is supported and the company is, you know, successful with making the right decisions.
Yeah, that's heavy though, because when you think about it, it's got to be difficult to switch off and go from mommy mode to, you know, marketing director mode. Like, are there times where you ever feel like there's one ball dropping versus the other, or have you been able to kind of figure it out?
Yeah, I think we all have that. No matter with kids, without kids, whatever it is, right? There's always something going on in our personal life. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, it's easier to drop the family life, to drop the ball on family life. And I try my best not to do that. I try really to have that work-life balance. And I tell my team this all the time, 5 o'clock, time to shut off. Because you need to go home. You need to have that. Because if you don't, you're coming back to work the next day and you didn't have that time to shut off. And you need to have that shut off button. I don't necessarily have that. I don't know how to do that. I've always been that person who looks at my phone every 10 minutes. What's the new email coming in? Do I need to make sure I'm ready for the next day? So I will say it's easier to drop the ball when it comes to home, but I try my best not to, because I want to make sure my kids feel loved and supported all the time.
Why do you feel like it's easier for us to drop the ball at home? Like, why is it easier? And I don't think that's just a woman thing. I think that's just a people thing, period. Yeah. Why is it easier for us to drop the ball? When I say drop the ball, very loosely, like your kids are fed and well. I don't mean like that. But why is it easier for us? Exactly. No, we're not. That's not what we're saying. When I say, like, you know, it's easier for us to kind of neglect home in ways where we're not fully showing up as ourselves when we get home. Like, home gets the worst of us sometimes. If we had a bad day at work, you know, we feel it more at home rather than we truck on at work. Like, why do you think we're like that?
I think because you're not being judged the same way. You know, you're not being evaluated. Your kids aren't giving you, like, here's your mid-year review, here's your bonus, here's you know, your pay raise, whatever it is, right? They're going to accept you for your flaws. And I think we just have to work so much harder, and as women, right, to prove ourselves in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Whereas I come home and I'm going to be my kid's superhero. You you know, but I want to be my kid's superhero, and I want to make sure I show up every day for them as well. So it is finding that balance, but unfortunately it's always easier for us to drop the ball that way because we don't have as much to prove.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you said you recently had, how old is your youngest now?
She's 15 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's growing fast, little Olivia.
Olivia. So, but in between Olivia and your oldest, right, you had some challenges with pregnancy, and we spoke about this. She told me it was okay to speak about.
Yes,
it.
100%.
Not calling her out. And in that, right, and having this amazing job and having some infertility issues, how was that for you?
Very tough. You know, as women, we have a lot of pressure, you know, you're a kid, let's go to school and get your education and get a good job and get married and then have kids. And that's what we're told to do. And that's what you see in the movies. And you put a lot of pressure on yourself, but it doesn't always happen that way. And it's the job, the husband, the kids, you know, we that doesn't happen easily for all of us. And fortunately with Ava, it did. You know, we thought, you know, we're going to have a baby, and 6 weeks later we conceived, and we had Ava, and we thought going into the second, this is going to be super easy. And we actually got pregnant, maybe second month of trying. Unfortunately, that ended in a miscarriage while you're working, right? And there's a lot of pressure, and you're thinking, wait, this is weird. I had my child. What's going on? And you don't expect that. We told family early on because naively we thought we had a kid. It was easy. Everything's going to be fine. And we actually went on to have 4 miscarriages, a couple early, a couple after, heartbeats, which are absolutely devastating. Someone looking at you and saying, I'm sorry, baby, there's no heartbeat, words you will never forget in your life. But navigating that while you're also going to work. I had a miscarriage in the bathroom at work.
Wow.
And having to pick yourself up off the floor and go, okay, what now? You know? And of course I went home.
Yeah.
And I, at the time, had a female boss, and I actually told her, and I think that's something really important, because it's hard to have that conversation where they didn't know you were pregnant. And then you're going, oh, by the way, I was pregnant, and actually I've lost the baby, and now I need to take a day or two off, right? To mourn that. And I think we need to start talking about that more. The statistic is 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a loss. And that's a big number.
Huge number. Which
means if everybody around you is, you know, trying to have babies at the same time, you're at a certain age, that means you definitely know somebody going through it, especially at work. And so that could be somebody, you know, in the bathroom having a miscarriage, and people feel broken. And so they don't want to talk about it. They feel like I'm trying to do something and I'm failing. And as women, I said it before, we have a lot to prove, you know, and there's a lot of pressure. And so when something's not working, you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to tell people I'm broken. You're not broken. One. And I had to tell myself that a lot. But navigating work while going through that is a complete roller coaster. You want to show up and be your best self at work. You want to be your best self at home, but you're dealing with something. So that was difficult. But I will say it's important to talk about it, and it's also important to take the time.
So during this, right, and obviously we're segueing a little bit, but how was her husband, sorry, I was supposed to say Addie, how was your husband during this time for you? Like how was that for him as well?
He was amazing. There were times where I sat there, and I don't think I've ever said this to him, so this may be the first time he's heard it, but I would think to myself, he should have married someone else, because then he wouldn't be going through this with me. The first time we went to the ultrasound, like we had a heartbeat, right? Everything was fine. And then we went the first time we went through it, and we went to the next ultrasound. And then this was when they said there's no heartbeat, and it was his birthday.
Oh God.
And I'll never forget that. You know, I had gone to get him a hot chocolate and some donuts on the way, and I'm all excited. We're going to see the baby again. And you go and they say there's no heartbeat, and you're looking at him like, happy birthday. Like,
right. Oh my God.
So, you know, it was terrible for both of us, but thankfully we are stronger than ever going through everything we've gone through. He's been my support and my rock, and he, you know, as he keeps a lot in, but thankfully, you know, we talked about it and we got through it, and I think we're stronger than ever just having gone through that.
How was mommy Shira during this time with Ava? And because obviously she doesn't really understand what's happening, right?
What's going on. So it was hard because you want to go home and crawl into bed and get into this kind of dark hole and just lay there and cry. And then you have this other child to be there for. And it was during COVID, actually, the second time I had unfortunately lost a heartbeat another time. And it was COVID. So Addie wasn't actually able to come with me to the ultrasound that time. So not only did I have to find out about it on my own, but I had to go home and tell him. Ava was there in the kitchen, and I remember coming home and just thinking, okay, I need to tell him this, but I need to hold it in. And I, of course, lost it, as you do. And I had the emotions, and she just came and gave me a hug, and it kind of made it all better. And I just looked at her, and I thought, how lucky I am, right? And I think not everybody, some people are suffering through it and they don't have a child yet. And then I'm looking at my child and going, how lucky am I that I have this beautiful, and Ava, and she's just
ball of sunshine,
ray of sunshine, and she's just that smile. And so that just really helped me get through it. And knowing that, okay, let me go and lay in bed for a couple hours, but then let me pick myself up and just go be around her. And so it helped a lot.
Yeah. And so with beautiful Olivia now, like, how did you guys get to the point where you're like, you know what, we're going to do this again? The loss it was a devastating, obviously, but you really wanted another child. Like, how do you continue to try after that?
It's hard. You take time. And I will say that's one of the things I tell people when they come to me is take time, make sure that you're ready. I found a very compassionate doctor, and I think that that's really important, is find someone that's going to be on the journey with you. And he sat me down one of the first times I met him, and I'll never forget, he sat next to me, pulled up a chair next to me. It wasn't across from me, but it was next to me. And he said to me, you need to make a decision. You need to go home, and you need to make a decision of how much are you willing to go through, not financially, emotionally. How much are you willing to go through? Go home and talk to your husband. And I did. And he said, some people will go and they'll go through 9, 10 losses. And I looked at him and I said, how? I mean, I had 4, and I was at rock bottom at that point. And I went home and I said, you know what? Let's do IVF. Let's do it one round. We'd gone to do some testing, and he said to me, I think it's an egg quality issue. And let's do some testing. We'll do IVF. We'll test the eggs, and then we'll test the embryos, and then we know what's healthy. And that way you can avoid pregnancy loss. So I said, let's do this once. I am willing. That is what I have to give, is one time. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And we're happy with, beautiful Ava. And so I made the decision to go and do IVF once. Unfortunately, it was COVID time. And so we had to put it off for a bit. But we went and we did it. And that's an emotional roller coaster in itself. It's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of up and down.
A lot of hormones.
A lot of hormones. Thankfully, my marriage survived that. But we ended up with one embryo. Wow. One embryo. And I was devastated. I looked and I said, one embryo, how are we getting a baby? But it takes one, because we have Olivia. She was our one embryo. Wow. The one embryo that could. And the doctor called us and said, I have the best news. It's a healthy embryo. And if you want to know the sex. And I didn't, my husband did. So I said, fine, let's go with it. And she said, it's a baby girl. And, so it's a weird concept though, IVF, because, they freeze this little embryo, and then they implant, but we knew what the baby was before they implanted, and gave birth to Olivia, and she's 15 months.
Oh my gosh.
And
it's so crazy when you think of like the IVF process, and because you posted a video, because I didn't know what any of that. I think a lot of people did. You guys kind of kept it very private, and you posted the video of all the syringes that you had to take. That's crazy. Like no one really hears about or talks. Well, people talk about it now, I think, more than they did before, but you don't realize how many people are going through it. And like, you weren't in Bermuda for a good portion of it. Like, so you're away from kind of, and luckily you have family overseas, but it's not home, it's not your house, it's not your bed. Like, we don't have those facilities in Bermuda either. So it kind of, we think about it in this like kind of mystical land over there, right? Of like IVF or freezing of the eggs. Okay, I'll go and do it here. But there's so many people right next to us that we know and that we deal with every single day that are, injecting themselves, I don't know how many times a day, to get these beautiful children. And there is a significant amount of people that just it doesn't happen.
A lot. Yeah. So that video I posted, you're right. We are quite private. I'm a very superstitious person. So when it comes to pregnancies, I don't post anything. I always feel like something's going to go wrong. I also don't like when people feel sorry for me. And so, when you post things and then let's say you have a miscarriage and all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually we're not pregnant anymore. That terrified me. But there's this thing, a year after you transfer an embryo, it's a transferversary. And people post these videos of here was the embryo and here's the baby. And a long time I went back and forth. Do I post the video? Do I not? Do I post? And then I remembered back to when I was going through it, and there was some people who were sharing their stories, you know, like Tor in Bermuda was one of the only ones I knew of. And I was grateful for her posting her process and everything she went through, because it's less lonely.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I could make one person less lonely, then I've achieved what I set out to do. So I put out this video, and I was terrified. But I got such amazing feedback from people, and just support, and just saying, you're so strong. And I didn't think of myself as strong. I actually felt, again, broken. You know, my body's not doing what it's supposed to do. And I went back and I said, no, you are strong. Look what you just went through. And I was so happy I put out that video, because to this day I get people messaging me with questions, and support, and they feel lonely. And I know that feeling. And so actually, I'd love for you to post maybe my personal email at the end. So if anybody wants to reach out, I mean, I'm more than happy. Even if it's just a hug, I give good hugs. I'm happy to.
Right.
But, you know, it is a lot, and it can be a very lonely process. And as you said, you travel for it. So I went to Florida. I interviewed 6 doctors. I'm a little bit.
You interviewed 6 doctors? I love you, Shira.
You have to interview your doctor, right?
I know, I agree.
It's important. Interview your doctor. I went through 6 before I found the one I felt that I jived the best with. And we all, you know, we have different needs.
Yeah.
But she was compassionate and amazing. And they had such a great reputation. So I went to Florida. But you're right, you do have to go away for about 2 weeks at a time to do each procedure. It was during COVID, so it's a bit easier to work from away. But, you know, again, you're telling work it's a medical procedure, because we need to normalize this, though. We need to normalize this.
Yeah.
That's
but also, it's no one's business if you don't want to talk about it,
and that's
right?
fine, too. That's fine, too. But it's a lot of needles. You're right. It's a lot of bruising. Thankfully, I'm okay with needles. I actually went and donated blood recently, which, by the way, really important thing.
Gotta do it. I know I do it as well.
I went, and I didn't realize, though, you know, how limited a supply they have. You don't realize. They told me that I think on one of the days, a woman had a baby and needed all the blood supply. And if it hadn't been for the people that had come that day, somebody who, well, she was fine, but the person the next day would have. So, you know, if you can, please donate blood.
I know I donate blood. I go once a quarter. They apparently am a really good match for a young kid who has sickle cell.
Sickle cell, yes.
So they call me once a quarter to go and donate to him.
Blood.
Yeah, and I'd never thought about it before until we did this company thing. They had a drive for all companies or whatever.
Yes.
And I went and did it. And the lady, they called me like 4 days later. They were like, do you mind giving blood more often? And I was like, I mean, sure, it's 20 minutes.
They didn't ask me to, but I'm going to.
Yeah, do it.
I actually needed a blood transfusion.
When you had Olivia,
when I had
right?
Olivia, I was bleeding out after I had her.
Wow.
And needed a double blood transfusion to save my life. So grateful for everyone giving blood, and I'm going to continue to do it.
Yeah.
So again, give blood.
Absolutely. Give blood is so necessary. I mean, after all of this, right? And obviously this segment for us is women in leadership. Like, how do you show up for work after 4 miscarriages and then a round of IVF, being away for 2 weeks? Like, how do you show up for work and work? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's tough. You know, anybody going through grief, you know, it's a similar process. I think work is a good outlet, though. It's a good distraction, especially when you're in a leadership role and you just have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing it, the work's not getting done,
Yeah.
right? That's visible. But I love my work, and I love what I do, and I love being creative, and I love the company I work for and the team I'm with. And I think that helps, right? Because you come into sort of a family environment, right? And that's helpful. But I would also say you take the time you need.
Yeah.
After the first one, you know, I took a couple days. After the second, you know, you take a couple more. And I think after the last one, I think I ended up taking a week off. And then I said to myself, a week physically from work.
Yeah.
And then you take a month almost emotionally. And I think it's important for people when you're going through any kind of grief is set that time limit. What's that time limit where you're going to say enough's enough? I'm getting out of bed. I'm not hiding. I'm going to go see my friends, and I'm going to pick myself back up, because it's easy to fall into a deep depression for anyone going through it.
Yeah. So when you say grief, right, like break it down for people who do not understand what that kind of feels like. Because I've never been pregnant before. Like, how do you explain to someone what grief is for a person or a child you've never met?
I mean, it's like losing a loved one, right? Because in your mind, you're pregnant. You've now thought about all the things that are going to come after that, right? You thought about the pregnancy and then that carrying that baby in your arms. I already had a child, so I knew exactly what the process was and what I'm going to get from it. And so you've already imagined all this. Not only that, you've told your partner, your husband, you've told him we're having this baby, and you've had this excited you know, you've had this excitement and you've celebrated. And then that's all just taken away from you. And I think coupled with this whole, and I'm going to go back to it, feeling broken and feeling like your body's not doing what it's supposed to do. And you're mourning that in a way too.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of grief, and you've not necessarily met that baby. And some people have, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, they lose them at a later stage. And so it's similar to losing a loved one, even though you've never met them. It's grief is grief.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask that question because a lot of times people don't resonate with how that potentially feels.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you explained it and I feel like having a child and then going through those issues to the point that you made about, you know, what it's like you know what should be coming next.
Yeah.
And for that not to happen, that's got to be like gut wrenching, right?
I'll say too, going through each pregnancy after the first loss is terrifying. It's a constant battle because you're going to an ultrasound and you're expecting the next time for them to say there's no heartbeat. You know, you're expecting them to say there's something wrong. And so literally every single time I went to an appointment, my blood pressure was up. And I was almost in tears. Yeah. And thankfully my doctor in the first however many weeks allowed, every single week I went in for an ultrasound. And he allowed me to do that so that it would ease my nerves and I could just keep going on living.
Yeah. That's the importance of a good doctor, right? Could you imagine if your doctor wasn't that accommodating for that?
I did switch. Right? I did switch doctors after the first couple of losses because I felt I needed the compassion and I needed a different partner in this. And I did get a partner and someone who was with me every step of the way, explained every step of the way. You need a surgery basically after a loss, after there's no heartbeat. They need to take that fetus out. Yeah. And you know, you need someone to be there by your side and checking on you. I actually had to take blood thinner shots with IVF. There was a lot. I had gestational diabetes. I had gestational hypertension. So yeah, I was, I did a lot of appointments.
Yeah, a lot of appointments. We don't realize how much or take into account how much women go through when they're pregnant, right? What it takes to actually bring a life into this world. Like you deserve the push gifts that the people talk about. You deserve them.
Oh yes. You know, it's not even that. It's making the baby, having the baby. It's a lot. The recovery. I think people underestimate the recovery, underestimate what the breastfeeding process is going to look like and feeding your baby. Yeah. I don't think anyone prepares you for how hard that really is. And I will say I'm so thankful for social media these days and moms who are real. Thank you to all the real moms who don't just post the fun, like, look how easy this is. My baby's always happy. No. There is tears. There is lots of dirty diapers. There are moments I'll never forget with Ava. You know, the breastfeeding journey is hard. And there was nights where I was just breaking down in the middle of the night. And people are posting that now. And people are posting just inspirational things, but at the same time, they're posting, this is hard. I am struggling. And I think that is so real and so amazing because it's so much less lonely when you're sitting there in the middle of the night and you're exhausted and someone else is actually saying, I'm going through that too.
Yeah. My best friend, well, Ari is 2 now, which is crazy to think about. Cute. But when she was pregnant, like she was sending me like TikToks and things like that. So like my whole TikTok, Instagram algorithm was as if I was having a baby. So it was a lot of things I did not know. People go like the mucus plug, like the breastfeeding, like, and I know Samantha wouldn't care if I said this, but like she didn't have an easy time breastfeeding. Like, so
most people don't.
Right. And you just assume that it just comes in naturally. I thought the same thing. And like, you know, I remember first time she pumped, I think it was like 2 ounces. Like she had tears in her eyes. Like she was so excited. And when you look at what 2 ounces is, you're just like, it's not a lot, right?
After the blood transfusion, I struggled with Liv because my body had no fluids left in it, right? And so my breast milk didn't come in the same way that it would have. I also have Hashimoto's and PCOS for all the women. Hashimoto's? So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder. It's a thyroid, affects your thyroid. So I know a lot of women, you know, you have your thyroid tested, it ends up being sluggish around 30, 40 years old. I had that since I was 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Shout out to my mom who had the doctors test me. Yeah. And found it early. But I have Hashimoto's and PCOS. So that does PCOS, lots of us, which does make it harder to conceive. But you know, that does make it harder to produce breast milk as well. Yeah. And so with Liv, we were topping up all the time. So it was a much shorter journey with her. But at the end of the day, again, we have so much pressure, and I'll go back to that again, but we put a lot of pressure on ourselves She's a happy, healthy baby. And that is all that matters.
That's all that matters, right?
All that matters. Happiest baby.
Yeah. So you mentioned your mom, and I tell you that Liv looks just like your mom.
Yes,
like,
you do.
Twins. I don't know how no one else says that, but I think that they look
like Addie, my husband.
No way. She looks like your mom. Anyway,
right. My mom will love that.
I say all that to say, like, how has your mom been and supportive during all of this for you?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom is my best friend. It's funny when you asked me earlier how I was as a kid, because as a kid, we were not best friends.
Well, yeah, if you were not a good kid, I could imagine.
Not a good kid. I think I told her I hated her all the time. So I'm really sorry for that, Mom. I think we all do that, though. We all have those moments. But when I moved to Bermuda, we became best friends. Best friends. We talk every day, multiple times. And she has been the biggest support system. I will never forget, after I had Liv, we sent her a picture, right? Here's the baby, she's out. And then everything kind of went, I started bleeding. I had to go into the operating room, rushed in. I had 3 OBs standing over me. It was all crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And she called my husband and she said, where's Shira? Let me talk to her. And he was kind of like
freaking out.
What do I say? Right?
Oh my God.
So he told her, they just had to go check her out. And she looks, what are you not telling me? So he had to tell her. And when I came back, I think I was in the operating room about 3 hours and then recovery. So by the time it's a long time. It didn't feel that way. My poor husband sitting there has no idea what's happening. Am I okay? And I go back and I called her, and I heard the look on her face, the tears that came down her face. I mean, but she's been my best friend. I had blood pressure issues when I was pregnant with Ava, and I was going and I was being induced to have Ava, and got on the next plane. And unfortunately, we don't live close by. She's in Florida, but only a plane ride away. But she's my best friend, and she's been the biggest support system for me going through this. What
would you say something that she kind of, not necessarily taught you, but like from her parenting style that you kind of mimic now?
Yeah, she's very warm, but I think we learned independence from a young age. I was working at 17. She gives good advice. And so I think just being there for your kids and giving the advice they need. She's just a warm person, and she's easy to talk to. And I think I've taken that from her, right? Just be open and be warm and make people want to feel like they can come and talk to you.
Yeah.
And especially going through this, I'm really happy that I've had as many people approach me and come to me and ask me for help and support, because it just means that I'm like her in that approachable way.
Yeah. That's good. So when you think of fear, right, and of everything that you've been through in your journey, trying to conceive life, moving to a different country, all of these things that you've been through, when you think of fear, like, what are you afraid of and how do you manage that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I worked on that one.
You're right. I mean, I'm brave at times, right? I did pick up and move to a foreign country. Like you said, I didn't know anyone. My first time in Bermuda was literally landing. I went to work the next day. Wow. And that was an amazing experience. And I'm brave in that way because I know I was going to meet people. I know I'm personable. So fear, not a fear of succeeding, because I am confident. And I think you need to be confident as a leader. But I think fear of not succeeding in other ways. We dropped the ball at home, and I'm going, fear that I'm not going to get food on the table, not money-wise, but in terms of, make sure the time to go and do that, and fear that I'm not going to be enough in that way. Am I going to, I want to say I'm a successful wife, and I want to say I'm a successful mom, but those are the things I'm most fearful of, is being the best I can be at home, and being the best I can be for my kids, and raising amazing kids who are confident and fearless and leaders. That's all I want for them, but that's probably what scares me the most.
Okay. And then you spoke about success and being successful. Like, what would you define as success in your life?
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations about this, because I think it's a really important question. And I think we always go back to, success is being at the top, and success is making a lot of money, but that's not what it is for me. Yes, I want those things. But success is really, am I a good person?
Yeah.
First and foremost, am I a good person? Because if you're a good person, you're successful. You've succeeded in life, right? And are my kids good people? I think that to me is success. Yeah. Yep. That to me is more success than anything else.
Yeah.
Being a good person.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I think a lot of times we put so much pressure on success when it comes to how much money we make, you know, our cars, our houses, what our kids end up doing.
Things are nice.
They're nice. Like, don't get me wrong. Life is easier when you have a little change in your pocket. Like, I'm not disputing that. But sometimes you have all those things and you deal with people who have all those things and they're just not nice. You know what I mean? And it takes away from all the other stuff because you're going to end up lonely if you're not a nice person.
Sure does.
And, you know, family and I don't know the offspring part of it, but you know, family and friends and people you care that care about you and you care about, that means way more. Because if you have nothing, like,
life is just so much more meaningful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And having a great circle of people around you that inspire you and are there for you, it's so important.
Absolutely. So if you could think of like the next generation of leaders that are coming up after you, we don't say the next generation, that's a little dramatic, but you know, the leaders that are coming up post Shira, like what advice would you give another female leader that's coming up after you?
Be true to yourself, I think is a big one, right? I think we try to be who we think we should be versus who we really are. And who you are is amazing, right? It's easy to look and say, they want me to be this way. They want me to be that way. They want, you know, I'll take marketing, for example, right? You have the older generation who didn't understand social media, for example, right? And you have to take that risk and you have to take that challenge and convince, right? And say, look, this is the benefit. Yeah. And without risk, there's no reward. I think that's a big one too. Without risk, no reward. But just be true to yourself, be who you are and push the limits and take risks. I think that's really important. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too is, you know, find that work balance. If we're talking about work, work is find that balance. Because I think that's really important. It's easy to say, you know, if I don't look at my email at midnight, if I don't look at my email at 1 a.m. and respond right away, it's okay. You know, things can wait and things will wait. Some things are urgent. You know, we have, you know, hopefully no hurricanes coming, but, you know, working in telecommunications company, hurricanes have taken on a whole new meaning.
Yep, it's so true.
Because internet, can't live without the internet. Nope, right?
Can't.
So Belco and internet and mobile. Yeah. But I think, you know, it's important to have that work-life balance. So I think try to find that and just be true to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so final question. Everyone gets asked it when they leave, before they can leave the couch, is what do you want to be remembered for when you're no longer here on this planet and someone says Shira Jatto, about to say it again. What do you want to be remembered for?
Can I just say again, a good person? Yeah. I just want to be someone who... my grandmother, she's actually my bubby, that's Yiddish for grandmother, Bubby Rose. When we went to her funeral, there were no seats or standing room left in that room. She was the most amazing woman who took everybody in, you know, all the kids wanted to go to her house. She was just such a warm person. She lived, you know, a 3-hour drive from us. You show up, your favorite food's on the table and the cookies. And she was just such a warm, loving, caring person. And as much, again, as I want to say, you know, known to be this leader or a boss or wherever I am, I just want to be known for just being a good person. And I would, you know, I don't think I'll see my funeral, but if I did, it would be amazing to see the no standing room left in that room just because of the impression that you left on people. That's what I want for myself.
All right, Shira. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
today. I'm glad you mentioned earlier, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, whether it's to talk about your fertility journey, becoming a female leader, marketing communications, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So it's Shira, SHIRA, 1008, my birthday, at hotmail.com. And yes, I still use
Not
Hotmail.
a Hotmail.
I use Hotmail. I check my junk folder. Don't worry. But please, if anything, you know, I'm so open to talking about anything, any questions. Obviously, I've been through the infertility and the pregnancy loss and IVF and traveling away. So any questions, I'm always here for it, and I'm happy to help.
What about Instagram? Instagram
is actually Shira 1008 to make that easy. Shira Jatto on Instagram. So, you know, you can follow me there. There's a couple. I think I only posted one video, but happy to share it and also just answer any questions. I'm here for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm finally glad we got to nail it down.
Yes.
And we figured it out. Timing was perfect, so everything worked out for a reason.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks so much for spending some time with myself and Shira today. We're so excited that you spent some time with us and you got to hear Shira's journey, and we got to learn about how bad she was as a kid, but how amazing she is as an adult and as a mom and as a leader in the company that she works for. Like she said, if you want to get in contact with her, make sure you send over an email to her, or if you would like, you can also reach out to her on Instagram. Big shout out to our sponsors for this season, Brown & Co. as well as 59 Front. Make sure you head over to Brown & Co. and you get your corksicles for you to be able to keep your drinks hot and or cold while you are drinking them. Thanks so much for watching Hustle Her Podcast. Hey guys, thanks for watching that episode. I don't know if you saw, but we did have some books on display. Our sponsor this season is Brown & Company, and their bookmark curated some books for us. The first one was The Secrets of Tamarind. Then we had The Mental Wellness. And finally, we had The Cultural Treasures of the World. All of these books can be found at the bookmark at Brown & Company.